送人玫瑰手有余香，这是深圳一公园的一个口号，就是深圳啊，这个做义工啊，这个有时间了做义工啊，有事儿了找义工啊，成功就是要拓荒，就是要突破这种盘根错节的束缚，进行改革开放。所以刚开始的时候，深圳的工业这个档次和水平是比较低的，这是刚开始办工业。经过了20多年的发展呢，深圳逐渐的面临了这种土地、资源、人口和环境方面的这个叫前有追兵啊，这个前有标兵后有追兵啊这种形势，深圳被抛弃了。而深圳怎样才能继续引领经济发展呢？创新。
What has happened in Shenzhen within 35 years of time, its uniqueness is fading because those same innovations, say policy innovation or industry innovation, now it's everywhere in China. So it doesn't have that edge of being the only one or even the first one anymore. It's kind of a catch-22, right? It recognizes what it's been able to achieve, but it's also inherent, like, how are you going to make it better?
People who come to Shenzhen get older, and as the experience grows, they start to develop something new rather than manufacturing. They become engineers, they become brands. Meanwhile, the government is pushing out manufacturing to the outer of Shenzhen.
这个其实就是一台 PC， 然后的话，直接的话通过它接上显示器或者接上电视机，然后你的电视机、显示器就变成一台电脑了，里面有4G 的内存，128G 的硬盘。因为这个整个60美金吧，60美金到90美金，我们的就是开源的核心的就 GPIO 那个要打开嘛。
A lot of confusion is happening right now. What I'm going to do? What's next? Should I invest in branding or I just close my company? I think it's a perfect moment for innovations because I can attract at least a portion of them to put the resources to innovate something new.
他自己有研发，有整个的打造成那个叫做精品，他就不再是做山寨，他去做自己的研发，做自己各种自己的品牌。但是现在我们在知识产权这个意识形态上已经非常非常的强烈。人家抄袭了我，然后他在 AliExpress、在eBay、在亚马逊上卖，我就可以很快的投诉他，他很快就要下架。这个世界我觉得应该是一个开源的世界，特斯拉。包括说 Facebook、亚马逊，他们把人工智能都是开源的，在安卓的那些都是开源的。任何一种竞争都是基于一种更高级的商业模式的竞争，这是苹果的一种商业逻辑。
I've seen a change in the way that innovation in China happens. There's a fantastic number of Chinese startups that are doing really, really good products.
Chinese startups are getting better because they want to learn from Europe. If you go to a conference with innovation speakers from France or from Germany or from England or whatever, most of the people will be Chinese in the room. They want to learn.
我从小的话，我从最基层做起，就尤其是这样深圳的这些做山寨的群体。以前的话，中国打压山寨，政府打压山寨，然后国外的人看不起山寨，那是很多年以前。如今，我觉得创客跟山寨原理是一样的。其实山寨不是说一个仿制，山寨是一种精神，山寨是一种精神，草根崛起的奋斗精神。在我看来，我认为是在中国最有创造力、最有潜力。
In the past 20 years, everybody who wants to make it a Silicon Valley has to go through this very tight and small selection process by a small group of people who are the venture capitalists. Young white males between 20 to 30, controlling how technology will be developed, how technology will be applied, and how technology will be available to the general public. That is the very definition of control economy.
And they're ready to have like these massive settlement fights and epic legal battles that go all the way to the Supreme Court and stuff like that. If everyone were like, actually we all do a good job, let's just work and try to figure out how to innovate. But it's a matter of getting critical mass of people to buy into it.
Without a big brand dictating what kind of feature we can have, the Shenzhen system is catering to everybody's need. It's not a small group of people who determine what gets developed, when, and how. Right now, we are still at the very early stage of this open source hardware movement. If we trace back to the late 90s, the open source software just got started. I mean, Bill Gates was speaking publicly about how open source is communism and it will destroy the software industry. And hey, today Microsoft is one of the most supporters of open source and even opened up the entire Windows 10. If the history of open source software is used as a benchmark, we are pretty much 5 years away from this being discussed in mainstream. It's a mindset change, but the future is possible.
They talk about, China's authoritarian, there's strong rules and all sorts of stuff. People here have developed a way to coexist with the rule of law and the way life needs to run. They sort of look the other way at the right times, I think, when things need to happen. This is how we've managed to make sure that everyone gets fairly compensated, everyone's fairly rewarded, and it works through this system. The another thing to be clear is that authoritarian doesn't mean evil, right? It's just that there's one authority. I mean, the Communist Party knows as well as anyone else that they have to keep the people happy. They're not just going to kick people around because they want to and they want to be trivial and small about it. So they try really hard to put economic policy in place that brings prosperity. One of the things that the government has said is we need a service economy that's tech-oriented and we need to get more young people interested in this, the maker movement. We want to graft that into our system and hopefully inspire another generation of young people to want to become, hardworking factory owners and employers and innovators like their parents were. And now there's even little maker spaces in cafes and innovation labs popping up left and right.
这个呢，就是通过这个输入，这个输入什么意思呢？你把它遮了光之后，它这里就会带动这里。这里呢是一个录音的按键，就是你可以按着这里，比如说欢迎大家来创吧咖啡，欢迎大家来创吧咖啡。
因为创吧咖啡是我们在去年9月份，是由深圳大学和赛格集团之后联合帮助我们去成立的。之后呢，那我们开业的那天的照片是在，因为在2015年那个李克强总理提出了一个概念，叫做全民创业万众创新。那去年呢，政府在扶持创客项目这一块就投入了据说9.3个亿。
如果深圳和国外比的话，第一，政府大力支撑，这是可能是目前只有中国政府能做得到了。
On one hand, it's great that the national government have seen this emergence of new media, new technology, and I think it's genuine to want to support it. However, I don't think there's a very good track record so far of governmental involvement in these more bottom-up activities. We take, for example, art districts, something that was emerging out of China 10, 20 years ago that really caught the imagination of artist colonies, galleries, but as soon as the government started to support it, the inevitable process of gentrification happened. Rent went up, more notable galleries moved in, so the artists who really were trying to experiment had to move out. So I have a concern along similar lines for these tech sectors. The government, in trying to support it, inevitably will formalize it.
It's interesting to sort of see the city evolve. And so there's a sort of wave of money and gentrification. You can sort of rolling from the east to the west and from the south to the north. The pace at which they do it is just crazy. You can walk from one end of the city to the other, and by the time you walk back to the other side, enough of the city will change that you won't recognize it. It's just tearing itself down and rebuilding itself as you walk through it. There's a region over there that was all these little electronic shops. They just leveled it, put up a luxury mall, and put a high-rise on top of it, and you wouldn't recognize it.
I mean, we have more high-rise here than anywhere in the world. I mean, honestly, if you walk around Shenzhen right now, we have over 278 buildings being built, up to 74. I travel all over the world. And when you look at everyone else, like, hey, you know, we are the fastest growing, you know, society around the industry today. And that's just a fact.
In China, there is a general lack of awareness of the negative ramifications of gentrification. Just as, you know, in the 60s, no one in New York thought that was a bad thing. The reason why the city has embraced this notion of new technology is trying to reinvent itself. My concern is that in this reinvention, it wants to very quickly rid of its even immediate past. A city that really struggled, really was dependent on a lot of things the government couldn't provide. Things happened by chance, accidentally. A lot of it was bottom up. In fact, there was not one fishing village, there were 2,000. These villages have evolved along with the city. They have taken up very important roles in providing housing, providing a certain social structure, jobs, a certain stability to the city that was not planned. It simply evolved with the formal city.
I would liken it more like a, you know, sort of the bacterial colonies of petri dish. Eventually, you grow a lawn of bacteria across it. You know, all the communities become interconnected. But you know, that's sort of the natural growth curve.
We are in Baishizhou, which is one of the more than 300 urban villages in Shenzhen. And here, like, no matter what, you don't need to go anywhere and you can find everything here. That's the amazing part of this. It provides everything you need for a community.
When the government designated Shenzhen as a special economic zone, they left patches of land for the villagers themselves to build homes.
This is the boundary line between the city and the urban village. This side is urban owned and this is urban village owned.
These urban villages are also breeding ground for a lot of innovation. You can change the structure, you can change the facade, you can spill your workshop into the alleyways. The whole neighborhood was built in this kind of bottom-up way. Shenzhen really represents a new modern image. It's a modern city, it's a new city. The urban villages are complete opposites to that image. The mayor's office declared the necessity to rid the cancers of the society. In those words.
So Baishizhou is going to be redeveloped this month, actually, April 2016. So this is how fast 150,000 people who lives here needs to be relocated.
There's some rumors that like the market here is eventually going to have to be displaced because as things gentrify, the rent on the shops are going to go up to the point where they can't sustain selling these like small parts and whatnot.
Just across the street, there's much more urban village going on. That's where we're headed to.
And I can't say if it's for better or for worse, but it's definitely, things are changing.
And so you transition straight out of like the market into, you know, urban village area like this.
Personally, I have a bias and I hope that it never goes away because I enjoy it so much and it's such a valuable resource to me. You'll see big districts where people are taking phones and tearing them apart and then another area putting them together into another phone. A lot of sort of recycling and upcycling going on.
So you can see like down there, there's a person there with a what looks like a pile of trash, but if you look closely, it's just that they're going through mobile phones and stripping out parts from them. We'll just take a quick walk through one of these informal areas. This guy's selling iPhone recycled parts. He actually has big bundles of motherboards that they've pulled out of phones that were previously thrown away, and then what they do is they take out the motherboards and they take the chips off and they eventually find their way back down the market. I mean, you can get your like roast pig's feet and then iPhone cases.
This market itself plays a kind of a critical part in the ecosystem in terms of being able to move goods around. You know, if one factory did a build and they had some excess and they want to get rid of it, a lot of it will come through this market and get recycled through the system. This one's straight from a factory floor. You can see that the motherboards are even still in the carrier. So this one was one that didn't even pass out of Apple, fully fabricated, and it found its way into scrap heap here. Well, people will go ahead and you can already see they pulled off some ICs for recycling and reprocessing into fixing phones and so forth. Oh, and here's these here are blank motherboards. And the interesting thing about this, you see like no solder on it at all. They still have a gold color, which means that there's been no processing of the board at all. It's straight virgin boards from the facility. So you're gonna move on, we're getting a crowd. I'll get some distance between us and those guys. I can get plenty of useful stuff for a fraction of the price that you would have to, even in the markets, you know, on the main street. That's the stuff that's going away. But those guys will innovate no matter what. They innovated despite the government, right? They'll be there and they'll keep walking, and they may have cut a path that looked interesting and that path is now being paved into the road. They'll cut another path. You've never had a fox run over by a steamroller when they're putting a road over a forest. The fox knows how to move away, right? It can run and find another place. And as long as there's continues to be green fields for these people to go to, I think things will be okay. And demilitarizing the Western IP ecosystem would be great. Right? I think that's something we can do, right? But it's just as hard as bring us back from the brink of the Cold War. You know, everyone has to sort of ease off, universally agree that we need to have a new paradigm. And I think one of the problems in doing that is that the militarization of IP has really benefited the big companies. And if they back off their stance of having huge caches of IP to nuke the little companies that come up, they're threatened by innovation. And so instead of seeing like this openness come out, you're seeing exactly the opposite. You're seeing the system calcify. And maybe what will happen in days, like, you know, sure, they'll own their edifices, but you know, they'll become so entrenched that they can't move on, right? Each of them is locked in their space. And then a very flexible ecosystem like China will just roll over them later on, and they'll wonder how that happened. It's because they did it to themselves at the end of the day.
I think the beautifulness of Shenzhen is people come here with the talents, with your efforts, your diligence, you can earn a place for yourself.
The makers, the hardware startup, the Internet of Things, producing hardware, they all converge here in Shenzhen. And that's what makes Shenzhen the Silicon Valley of power.
就是工程师的研发的能量和深圳山寨供应链的能量带到全世界。
赋予的它的使命呢，就是我们引进先进的技术。深圳进入了这样一个新的这个历史阶段，有一个新的历史使命，就是有中国梦这样一个阶段啊。
Now, you look at this light switch. Are they straight? You go to every five-star hotel everywhere in China right now. This is a problem you gotta identify. This is a perfect example. If we can just have a person take 2-3 seconds to just make that adjustment, China will be a perfect place. Detail.
Are they going to be more like the UK in the sense that they'll just shed their manufacturing background as they gentrify and sort of just go straight for, like, you know, a service economy? Or will they keep rooted in a sort of a manufacturing ecosystem and keep design parallel to it? Or will they just forever stay in manufacturing, right? Is that really just their core base and value and where they want to be? I mean, if China went from where they were to where they are today in 30 years, they could do that again in 30 years. Like within my lifetime, we could see the answer to this question. It'll be interesting to see where that answer ends up.